Money from the American Rescue Plan Act is being put to work right here in our own community. Together with our local partners, we're using these funds to create lasting change and to tackle the critical issues we face every day. From helping to create safe and stable housing to ensuring that everyone can benefit from Durham's successful economy, we're turning challenges into opportunities for growth and development. Welcome to City Life. I'm Beverly Thompson. Joining me to talk about how we're putting ARPA funds to work for Durham is Deputy City Manager Bertha Johnson. We also have with us Donna Carrington. She's the Executive Director of the Community Empowerment Fund. Welcome and thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
So Bertha, get us started by reminding us what the American Rescue Plan Act is, ARPA as it's commonly known, and how we're using those funds.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about ARPA today because it was a great opportunity for our community. President Biden signed the act into law March 11, 2021. It really was focused on helping to support cities and counties. Over $130 billion was allocated. So it was really focused on how do we cure issues around revenue losses for cities, as well as put money into the community to support the community based on what had occurred during the pandemic.
Okay, so how much of that $130 billion did the city of Durham actually get?
So surprisingly, the city of Durham was awarded $51 million in funding, and Durham County was actually allocated $61 million. And it was really focused on, how do we deal with public health issues, address negative economic impacts on our community, provide premium pay for our employees who would continue to provide services during the pandemic, as well as invest in water, sewer, and broadband services.
So a variety of projects could benefit from this money, huh?
Yes, cities were given a lot of flexibility within those categories.
So one of which is the Community Empowerment Fund. So Donna, tell us about the Community Empowerment Fund.
So the Community Empowerment Fund is a local nonprofit that is in Durham and Orange counties. Our mission is to cultivate assets, opportunities, and communities that sustain transitions out of homelessness and housing insecurity. The way we do it is we're very person-centered. We have financial coaching modules that people can interact with, and we have asset building tools that are helping people be more financially secure. We usually serve about 3,000 members across both offices a year and have about 250 advocates, mostly students from UNC and Duke.
Wow,
However,
okay.
we do have people that train from the community to do this work, and we are starting to add Central students.
Now when you say asset building, what does that really mean?
So with asset building, we're thinking about connecting people to bank accounts.
Okay.
We can connect people to local banks like Self-Help to actually have bank accounts. We also have an in-house savings program that has a match. So you do an education component like our financial coaching modules, and you save towards a goal and you get a 15% match.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. Now you've received a portion of the ARPA funding to support the Durham Eviction and Housing Debt Assistance Program. Tell me about that program specifically.
So that program is geared towards helping people pay their eviction debt post March 2020, having people that are housing insecure or currently homeless, that are under the 80% AMI for our area, and specifically matching them with monies to pay off things along with CEF's other services.
Now when you say 80% AMI, what specifically, say for one individual, what kind of income would that be?
That would be $53,500.
But typically you use the example of a household of four?
Yes, and a household of four is $76,400.
Okay, thanks for knowing that. I just think it's important that people understand exactly what we're talking about when we say percentage of AMI. So Bertha, what exactly was the process for deciding how these funds would be used?
So we initially started with looking internally at our departments, like what were some needs of our departments, who actually serve the community every day, even during the pandemic. We decided to use about over $7 million to give premium pay to our frontline employees because those employees were exposing themselves, but they had to continue those critical services to our residents, like solid waste, public works, police, fire. So we have over 60% of our employees receive premium pay and bonuses during that period. Second, we wanted to engage the community. What are the needs in the community from the community's perspective in those categories? So we worked with North Carolina Central University. We held several budget healing sessions. We invited residents, and it was not by coincidence that we ended up with North Carolina Central because of the community they serve and the community in which the university resides. So we work with some of the groups at North Carolina Central University to hold these sessions. And what was so exciting about having the sessions is we had planned to do some sessions with our regular budget process, but it was so much more engaging when we went to the residents with money in hand and said to residents, we have $51 million. We want to put this money in the community. Tell us what your needs are. And so we had an opportunity to work with the residents. The residents actually told us, helped us decide the categories we were going to use, and those categories ended up being health and wellness, safe and stable housing, community resiliency, and economic equity. And so then we decided to use our nonprofit and community groups to allocate that funding, or because that would be the easiest way to get the community get the money in the community. So we said, how do we get this money in the community? We don't usually provide those types of services. And we said, community organizations, nonprofit organizations. In addition to them being able to get the money into the community fast, it was also a way for us to support those nonprofit organizations and community groups because during the pandemic, obviously they were not getting as much funding as they normally got to support their organizations. So that was really important. So we solicited, organizations to provide proposals to us around those areas. We received over 200 proposals.
Wow.
We engaged the community and organizations, Durham County staff, city staff, to help us score those proposals. Once those proposals were scored, we actually presented those proposals to City Council, and City Council made the final decision. One of the things I wanted to say is that it was really important the way in which we vetted those organizations, because we've had some organizations, ask us, why didn't I receive funding? I actually submitted a proposal. And so we really focused on eligibility once. One, they had to be eligible for federal funding. We looked at equity impact. We had an equity score tool. We looked at how does it align with the city's strategic goals. Community benefit, how does it benefit the community? Collaboration, did the organization collaborate with the community and other groups? We looked at environmental sustainability. Was the organization in a position to actually administer the funds? And Donna can tell you about that. CARPA funding has a lot of restrictions, and so we needed to make sure that the organizations could adhere to the reporting and compliance guidelines. And most importantly, we looked at the qualified census tract, the HUD tract, which is focused on the highest poverty rate, lowest income. So if those projects serve those areas of the city, they received a higher score. And again, the proposals were submitted to City Council. City Council decided to fund 34 organizations at 70% of their requests up to $1 million. So we are working with over 34 organizations. We've added other organizations since the initial round. So we're working with lots of organizations, and we're getting a lot of money out into the community.
So the bottom line is people can have confidence that this money is being used effectively and like it's supposed to have been used, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we had a very transparent process. We had those organizations who were not selected or who did not submit their proposals by the deadline. We invited them to sit on review committees because we felt like that would strengthen them. If we had another round or other funding opportunities with the federal government, they would know, we wanted to be transparent about what it actually will take for them to make it in the next round. So, and we also want to be transparent with them about this is how you compare to the other organizations that were successful in their funding proposals.
What a great process. So Donna, speaking of the Housing Debt Assistance Program, did it even exist before the ARPA funds? And what have the funds actually meant for the program?
So we had a small amount of funding that we were doing for our organization to try to do this. We actually had a funder that we talked to about. We were seeing all of the evictions that were going on, and we really wanted to be able to do something and felt positioned to do it because of the way that we are as an organization, but not to this degree. We participated in the Durham Rent Relief. So we were one of the organizations that would help people do the applications and communicate about the applications. So we had seen the process and how it could work. And we really thought as an organization we could have less barriers. We knew more of the people that were on these census tracts were part of our members already, and we knew that we could get it out pretty quickly.
So tell me about the type of demographic or group that you're seeing need this type of program, right now more so than at any other time.
It's interesting. I think if you look at demographics for us, we tend to serve low income, no income, fixed income people. However, we're seeing people across the board actually need this. Lots of things are going on for people. So catastrophic illnesses. We have several members that are dealing with cancer. People losing and gaining, employment that may not be sufficient for their rental. But also we're seeing rental prices go up so high that people can't maintain their housing. And so we're seeing it happen across the board. I think that was very surprising to me. I knew that it would be within the people that we usually serve, but to see people coming with the higher AMIs and really having the same experience was really shocking.
So Bertha, besides the Community Empowerment Fund, what are some other types of projects or programs that the ARPA funds are being used for?
Well, Beverly, one that comes to mind related to what Donna just said is our Home and Neighborhood Preservation Initiative. I mean, that is really focused on keeping existing affordable housing affordable. We want to ensure that residents who are in the demographics that Donna mentioned are able to stay in their homes. And so that is home repair. Sometimes we know that residents may leave their home if they do not have funding to maintain the home. And so that was one of the big projects. And again, the goal is restoring homes so that residents can stay in homes and keep those homes affordable. A couple that I'm really excited about, there are 34 organizations that were in the first round, but one is Life Skills Foundation. I wanted to jot down a few of those. It was transitional housing for children who have aged out of foster care. These children may be homeless, and so they're working with these children to provide a place for the children to stay until they're able to get another permanent residence. The Durham Children's Initiative for Connected to Career Pipeline. This is focused on youth who are in the underserved areas in Durham, as we mentioned, helping them overcome barriers to either post-secondary education or employment. As we know, our children really suffered during the pandemic around learning loss. And so these are funds to help them get back on track, either for post-secondary education or employment at livable wages. The Durham County Criminal Justice Resource Center, we had over 600 residents returning to Durham from incarceration in 2021. So this is really focused on helping those residents re-entry, into the Durham community around peer support, around housing, around jobs. So helping those residents, because as we mentioned, there are residents who typically would be in a better place before the pandemic. And so when those residents are needing assistance, think about what that does to those residents who are most vulnerable. There's only so much funding available, and so those funds are to help those residents. And then another one we are doing, we've done some work with other youth in the community, some of the other proposals, working with students, working with giving some expansion opportunities like for entrepreneurship. We work with Provident 1869, expanding their space and creating a space for entrepreneurs to use for free to help leverage, that in-kind resource for them to jumpstart their businesses. So there are lots of, good opportunities, lots of proposals. I mean, there are so many amazing ways that we've been able to use this funding to help the community, in addition to what we provide as a city organization. So we have all of the proposals listed on our website with all the details, with the links to the persons and organizations that they can contact for more information. Even though our process is closed, these organizations are still out there soliciting residents to participate in their programs based on their needs.
Yeah, what a tremendous impact this funding is having.
Absolutely.
And will have into the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Bertha, I know also that we've partnered with Durham County for affordable housing using ARPA funds. Talk about how we're doing that.
Oh, Durham County has been a great partner with us. Not just affordable housing, they have partnered with us to fund culture and arts initiatives, Restart Art in Durham. They matched us with $1 million. They matched our digital equity program, which we're going to be hiring a digital inclusion manager to work with the community, because that was really something that was exposed during the pandemic.
Yeah,
having devices, having broadband access, internet access, that was a big issue. And so we're putting about $1 million into going out and finding where those gaps are and helping to close those gaps in our community. But the affordable housing is the biggest project.
Yeah.
We had about 4 project proposals that we'd already received. We did not have funding for those projects. We needed about $20 million. The city of Durham put up $10 million of its ARPA money, and Durham County put up $10 million of its ARPA funding. So that gave us an opportunity to put so many more units of affordable housing, as we talked about, that's much needed in our community. So Durham County has been a great partner. We continue to talk about ways we can partner around affordable housing, and we believe we'll be able to put some additional resources into affordable housing in the coming months.
Great, that sounds good. So Donna, back to your program, is there a limit to how much people can ask for with your program?
There is no limit. The only thing is this is a one-time funding. And that sometimes can be hard for people, but we've actually had a couple of pretty sizable payments that we've made that have really made an impact on someone's situation.
So talk about the requirements people must meet to get funding.
Our requirements are that a person has to become a member of our organization, which means that they're going to do an orientation. The orientation is going to talk about what we do, is going to talk about that this funding is available. They have to be a member of our organization for 30 days or do 2 meetings. They have to do a budget, and it has to be a recent budget, because that's really important for us to be able to have a longer term conversation about what happens after this is paid off.
Yeah, that's important.
And then they must meet the 80% AMI requirement.
So Bertha, these programs are making such a great impact in the community. Can people still apply for any ARPA funding with the city, or have all the funds been allocated?
Beverly, we do not anticipate another round of funding. We have reserved majority of the remaining funding, about $10 million for the Fayetteville Street Corridor revitalization initiative. We're really excited about that initiative. We're going to put about $10 million in the Fayetteville Street Corridor around sidewalks and streets and public art, as well as support for residential and business commercial investments. So that program is just getting started. Us figuring out, how we divide up the resources in the different categories, working with our internal departments to see how we can leverage the $10 million to get more work done in that quarter. So that's what we're really focused on next. So I don't anticipate another round. However, if there are organizations who have been funded who are not able, and we see some of that now, to use their resources, we may be able to put those resources back into the fund and offer some additional opportunities.
Great. Okay. So Donna, again, the Housing Debt Assistance Program has been open for like 6 months now, I believe. How many families, it's where the rubber meets the road, how many families have you actually helped?
We've been able to help 21 families currently. 18 of them we've actually been able to divert their eviction totally. The other 3 have had evictions that were in their past paid off so that they can actually acquire new housing.
Okay. So, Bertha, how long do the organizations have to actually spend the money that they've gotten?
The organizations have until December 31st, 2026 to spend the funding. We have to have all of the funding obligated by December 2024. So we have some time in terms of working with organizations. Some organizations have had to rescope, the original scope based on the timing of where we were in 2021 to where we are now. The needs may be somewhat different. Some organizations were able to get other funding for their programs, and so we're working with each organization to make sure that we don't hold them to a scope that's really not what's really needed in the community this time. So that takes a little time. But organizations have been really good about, revisiting their original scope when they submitted their applications and making sure it aligns with the current needs in the community.
Do you have like a monthly meeting set up with them? I mean, how do you know?
So we meet one-on-one with all our organizations. We have a team, and we meet regularly with our organizations. We have interventions when organizations have not submitted requests for, invoices or requests for funding. We have meetings to say, what's going on? Where are you? How can we assist you? Some organizations we've had to pair with other partners where they were not able to exactly implement the way they thought. We're like, hey, let's find you a partner who's also working in this space to help you implement your project. Some organizations needed more administrative support. The other unintended kind of good consequences of this is that we had not worked with many of these organizations in the past. And so we didn't know what their capacity was to implement or manage federal funding, which is very, 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 very restricted and stringent. So we're able to help organizations develop capacity so in the future they'll be able to get other funding from the federal government and getting them federal identification numbers, as well as setting up systems for compliance, for risk assessments, all those kinds of things. And so many of them are very grateful for the opportunity to be, for us to help them build the capacity to be able to get additional funding in the future and be able to grow their organizations.
Right. What a tremendous impact even on the organizations, like you said, unintended kind of benefits that they're getting in addition to the money. So that is awesome. So Donna, are there any funds left in your program?
There are still funds left. Some of the holdup of it is the orientation and having to get them through that space, but also the paperwork that it takes for this funding to be able to satisfy the requirements. But yes, there is funding left.
Okay, I guess that's good for the public to know.
Yes.
So if anybody wants to find out more about the Community Empowerment Program, how do they do that?
So you can go to our website, communityempowermentfund.org. There is more information about the program. There's also a referral form for people to get on our orientation wait list under Become a Member.
How long is orientation, by the way?
It's an hour. It's an hour of time to sit there and find out what the services are and all the things that people are going to want to engage with. It's an hour.
Okay. I was thinking it was maybe a week or so, but that is
an hour.
Wow,
that's an hour of time.
Okay. All right, Bertha, how can people learn more about ARPA funds that have been allocated?
So go to the city's website, durhamc.gov. They can go to two places, the Budget and Management Services website, where there's a link, and the City Manager's Office webpage. And there's a link there as well. We want folks to go to the website because we continue to put updated information. You asked me about another round, remaining funding. If there's an opportunity, we'll put that on the website. We also reach out to those persons that we have email contact for whenever we put new information out to say, go to our website. We have new information out there for you to take a
great
look at.
work. I know I didn't realize the amount of coordination that actually has to happen to make this program successful. So I want to thank you both for being on the show. I mean, this is just a very informative program, I think. And thank you both for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you for an opportunity to share the ARPA work that we're doing at the City of Durham, as well with our great partners in the community.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you again. So that does it for City Life. Don't forget to follow us on social media, watch us on the Durham Television Network and on YouTube, and you can listen to our podcast on iTunes. I'm Beverly Thompson. Thank you for joining me to learn more about city life in Durham. I didn't realize so much coordination went
It's a
into
lot.
this whole
It's a lot.
program.
And it's been difficult with our nonprofit organizations who've never been in a space where they had to do
Yeah.
so much work to get the funding.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get donors or volunteers to give you funding, but when we say you have to have these sessions with us, you have to do risk assessments.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look at your financials. We have to look at your any other federal fund, any other funding you've had, and get references. Like it's a
Yeah.
lot of work, and so
And you have to document it.
We have to document it. We
Yeah.
have to do get them when we get the invoices. They send us the invoices. Like no, it has to be very detailed. It has to be the Fed's going to come in and audit us. So every dollar that the Feds deems ineligible, the city has to pay that money back.
Wow.
And so we have to make sure that it's going to meet the federal standards. And it takes a while to get organizations to understand we're not trying to create barriers.
Right.
I mean, this is the cards we were dealt in terms of in order for accepting the money, we had to create a whole new city ARPA policy with all the federal guidelines in it. We have 4 or 5 different documents they have to complete. Like I said, some of them, didn't even have their federal identification numbers, had it tied to different business names. So we provided a lot of technical assistance, but we committed to the city council that every organization, all 34, we would ensure we got them through the process. And it takes a lot for some. It didn't take the ones that we worked with before, like Donna's organization. Obviously, they were easy. But when we got halfway through the list, we spent a lot of time with these organizations coming in and bringing us piles of paper to say, what do you need? Like, I don't
Right.
really know how to complete this form. And then the ones that were high risk, we couldn't give them funding in advance. That was a challenge for some of them to do their program. So we had to figure out ways in which we could give them a little bit of seed money to get them started before we could really invest a lot of money in the organizations.
And Bertha is right that this experience has opened up other things for us. We were able to apply for a HUD loan for something.
Wow.
It got recaptured in the stuff that happened with the budget. But at least we got the experience of being able to actually apply. And I think that's important because that's another source of, as nonprofits are growing and changing, to be able to have access to bigger pots of money.
And I think it's important too, you mentioned that you help some nonprofits develop a different scope if they need to. And some of them actually have not been able to use the funding. So that money goes back into the pot and can be used for other programs or projects with other nonprofits that need to broaden their scope, I would imagine. Is that
Absolutely.
right?
I think there were two organizations that said we're just not really. We figured we're not equipped to really manage this federal funding, and so that money went back into. I think we used that for affordable housing. But there were other organizations that we had to partner. So we had, for example, Duke. Dr. Darren and his group, their scope had to be refined, and when we refined the scope to a scope that was eligible, they didn't have the capacity. So we actually partnered them with Carolina Small Business Development Fund, Kevin Dick and his group, because we'd already worked with them on business grants.
Right.
And so we brought them in to say, Duke, you do the part, go out and do the surveys, the business survey on what the businesses need, and then Carolina Small Business Development Fund will provide the technical assistance to help the businesses implement those things that were identified in their surveys. So some organizations that we had to find fiscal sponsors for, they could not qualify because they did not have the financial policies, the financial team to manage the resources, and so we went out to like Triangle Community Foundation, other organizations said, can you be the fiscal sponsor for this organization? So some organizations found other nonprofit organizations to be fiscal sponsors. With our $1 million or $2 million we're putting into culture and art, we could not engage in subaward agreements with all the artists who would be applying for
Right.
funding. So Durham Durham Arts Council decided to be the sponsor for that and oversee the $1 million, and they would work with the individual artists to get the money to them and enter into the agreements. And we're doing, hopefully we're doing another $1 million with Hayti in order for them to do the public art component in the neighborhoods that we're working with. But yeah, we were committed to that. It's tough. A lot of cities actually did not do community engagement and did not work with community organizations because they said it was too difficult. Because you can use all of the funding internally. You can use it with your internal departments to provide services internally, but we wanted to put the money in the community, which was the intent. We wanted to build capacity with our nonprofit organization and community groups, but it's easy. It would have been easy to just say we're going to use it internally, and we could have done that, but that's not. And so when I go to other cities and present at other, I was at the LEAD conference and presented the other week, and cities came to us when we got these same kind of questions. It's like, that's exactly why we didn't do that, because we knew it was going to be really hard. Because remember, we still got years of compliance after this, where we have to have quarterly financial reports, quarterly reports on progress, performance metrics. We have to do interventions if they're not where they're supposed to be. So staff will continue to work with these organizations for the years to come. So there's
we
lot.
Didn't just make it rain.
There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be done.
I was going to say, this sounds like a model program.
Oh yes, we were actually recognized. U.S. Treasury linked to our website and our linked to our process because it was their intent for the money to go out in the community, even though it wasn't required because you could use it internally. So they wanted to encourage cities to use a process that had a community engagement component, and so they linked to our website. Here's how you can do that. Yeah, and Greensboro also, followed our footsteps in terms of doing community engagement. Durham County they work with us on doing some community engagement and came up with categories to support organizations.
I'm so proud of City of Durham for doing this. I mean,
it's been
just
great.
Great work. Do you all have any questions?
No, I think that, this has been fantastic.
Yeah.
I had a question, but you answered it.
We could talk about Durham all day. We're so proud of it.